Hello everybody, my name is Valisha. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're not, what's up? Today I'm going to be going over my May wrap up. I participated in Book Bay Read Along Mass May, so I have read all of the books in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I also read a few more books that I kind of squeezed in between there because reading this series was definitely a struggle. Like, there is a such thing as too much Sarah J Maas. The first book that I'm going to talk about is A Court of Thorns and Roses. A Court of Thorns and Roses. Overall, I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. This book has a lot of potential to be something great, but we all know how that works out. The main thing that I did not like in this book was Feyre. I felt like her character was just so inconsistent. There are literally 3 Feyres in this story. We have the Feyre that's at home. She shows signs of intelligence. She's a survivalist, like she knows how to make it. And then you have the Feyre at the Supreme Court who consistently makes like stupid, life-threatening decisions, and then she's just so naive, depressed, and self-loathing, and I hated Feyre at the Supreme Court. Like, just reading from her perspective was so depressing and just so draining. She has no self-worth for herself, and when Tamlin is introduced into the story, it's just she just idolized the men like in this story because she felt so worthless. Another thing I feel like that turns people off of this book is that it is predominantly romance in this story, and the romance in this story isn't that good. The 2 main characters, like, it's not a mutual love system they have going on. It's more like you fix my need and you fix my need, so you don't really have like a genuine love connection in the story. What I did like about this book is the writing style. I felt like Sarah J Maas, Feyre's voice was just beautiful. I love the imagery and metaphors that's in this story. And what I really loved about this story is the world building. Well, not the world building in itself, because that has some problems, but just the overall, my imagination of how this world looks. It just looks amazing. Some of the creatures in here are just so cool, and you get a variety of different ones. The world building, there were a lot of times where the world will be built between back and forth dialogue, and I did not like that because it would be too much. You have to memorize in a certain chapter instead of you just learning more about this world as the characters develop and experience things. And when it just drops like all that information just on that page, you're just like, oh, okay. The 3rd Feyre in this book was just unbelievable. Here we get to see her actually stand up for herself. She's trying. I know you guys are like, she's trying. Yes, she's trying, because it's points in this book where she's just alive, and I don't mean that in a good way. And the Feyre at the end of the story, she shows more confidence, and she's just the character that you would want to read about. And it's crazy that you get her at the end, because now you're just like, well, I like this Feyre at the end, so I have to read the next story. A Court of Mist and Fury. This book I gave 5 stars to. This is one of my favorite books, and this was the 4th time that I have read it. We get so many different characters in this book, and all of them are just amazing. I love when we get like a cast of characters that are like main alpha characters with really dominant personalities, instead of having like everybody. You have like 2 dominant personalities and everybody's kind of submissive to just kind of make the plot easier to go along. What I just adored about this one is the characters. And in this one, because it's so long, you get so much character development in this story. And it's not a fast-paced book because it's really slow. Like you really get to know like each character in here. And then the main character, Feyre, she's starting to move around more, so this already amazing world just becomes bigger. You get more cool creatures in this one. So I'm not going to just keep ranting and raving about this story because I absolutely love this one. I wish that this book was a standalone like mostly everybody else, because this book does not fit in with the series. When people say they like the series, they're talking about this book and this book only. This is the trove. This is the best part of the series. A Court of Mist and Fury set the bar really high. I expected so much more from Sarah J Maas, because after reading that book, I felt like her writing was just getting better, because I also read A Throne of Glass. So after reading A Court of Mist and Fury, I was like, dang, Sarah, I didn't know that you could write like that. And then I got this one. Yeah. I like part 1 of this book. Part 2 and 3, oh my gosh, characters declined in here. The plot was just overly explained. I would see so many different plot holes in the story, and then I'd be like, how is that going to work out? And then the next chapter, it would be just explaining everything to kind of backtrack how it's not like the story would not be consistent with the previous stories in the book. So they would have to go into these overly explaining situations where they have to just prove that, hey, this could happen. Did that make sense, or am I rambling? The plot became convoluted. There was too much explaining involved. When you have to overly explain what's going on, you just create a disconnect between the reader and the characters. And when the disconnect forms, you don't feel as much for the characters. And what really just killed this book for me was the ending. Everything was just perfect. Like, they go through a whole freaking war. It's okay though. It's okay. We're gonna fix everything, clean it up just nice for you. And that was just so disappointing and just unrealistic. Overall, I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. Next is A Court of Frost and Starlight. And at first I wasn't really understanding why this book was needed, but this book is needed for the super fans. This is for the people who are obsessed with this series, that I want to know what they're doing after the war. This book ties into the new series, which after reading this book really, it wasn't needed. I understand why this book was written aside from the super fans, and it does kind of transition you into the next series. I think this one is just to hype you up for the next series. This book was created to get people to want to continue on with this series. This book makes you want to keep reading because of the new perspectives that you get, and the perspectives are seen from an outside view in this book, and then you get a sneak peek of the new series, and that one you're actually inside of pretty much who this book is talking about. We get new damaged characters, and now we have to start all over and watch them build themselves up again. I'm along for the ride. I mean, why not? Overall, I ended up giving this book, I think, 3 out of 5 stars. I also wanted to talk about the sex in this book and how people are just like appalled. I feel that the first book in the series had sex in it, so I feel like you kind of know it's gonna be there. It's gonna be in the next book. This one starts off with sex in it. This series, the first book, has sex scenes. Throne of Glass, though, it's none until like the 5th book, and it's just bam, hey, we're here. I mean, we all up and in here. That's like me reading Harry Potter, and on the 5th or 6th book, bam, there's one for you. How awkward and traumatizing is that? Like, I love Harry Potter, but I don't want to know him like that. But anyways, that's my thoughts on that series. The next book that I did read this month was Gutter by Quan, and this book was a continuation from Gangsta by Quan. Gutter kind of follows Gutter, and he's still gang banging and hell bent on revenge, and I thought that I was going to be all for this violence, woohoo, but no, every female character in this story was weak, just pathetic, and just idolized men so much, like they just couldn't live without them, and I hated it. It's really hard to submerge yourself like in this world that you don't want to be in. It's like, I don't I don't want to be here. I don't like any of these girls. I don't want to be any of these characters. So overall, I ended up giving this book 1 out of 5 stars. The next book on my list is The Warded Man by Peter Brett, and this one I was really looking forward to. It follows the perspectives of 3 kids, and they live in this world where at nighttime demons come out of the ground and hunt and kill people. But the people have these magic wards that kind of keep the demons at bay, but now the wards are kind of starting to fail and they need like more powerful magic to keep these demons away. So we're following 3 perspectives, and I was okay with this book until like the 5th chapter. In 5th chapter, you really see like what life is like for women in this book, and by the end you're going to be disgusted because every woman in this book is content with being a happy wife, and they were just so docile and boring. And then the other women that kind of said something, that stood up for themselves and wanted to be more than just a wife, were just slut shamed, beaten, raped. Ugh. This book was definitely a hard pill to swallow. The best part of this book is one of the main characters named Arlen, and he is the main character in the story. And what's interesting about his story is that he has excellent determination. Like, he is so focused on his goals, you don't know how far he will go, how high he will reach, and you want to know his end story. You want to know how far he's going to get. You want to know how hard he's going to work for this. So I finished to see his story, but overall I think I ended up giving this book 1 or 2 stars out of 5. I really just did not like this book. This book just put me in a book slump. It became like so depressing to read. Like, the women in this book were just so abused. It was sad. The next book that I attempted to read was The Butterfly Garden, and this book is about a serial killer who kind of keeps these women in this garden, and he kind of rapes them from time to time and tortures and kills them. Great. I wasn't too thrilled about reading about more women being raped and abused, so I ended up DNFing this book. This book felt like a rape fantasy, and I think I made it to a good 150 pages in till I couldn't continue. The last book I read was 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, and this book started off really well, but the magic system tied into the religion, which I usually like that sort of thing, but the gods that were in this magic system and this religion, it was so many of them, and they wanted to tell you all of them and all of their background stories and every detail about the gods, and then you still have the main story going on with the regular characters that's in there. It was too much. It was just too much explaining, and I'm just like, I'm not here for it. And I know that I am in a book slump because everything that I read right now is just like, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. Don't want to read it. 100,000 Kingdoms follows this girl named Yena, and she's kind of put into this competition to become the new heir Mary, like the king, queen of this kingdom. Some of the characters in here were really cool, but there was some insta love going on in here too. And then along with all of the explaining, I don't have time for it. I can't force myself to read this. I do not have a June TBR, so I'm just kind of free flowing right now. I'm picking up books and I trash a few chapters, and if I don't like it, I just put it back because I'm just not in the mood for it right now. But I do hope to read at least 3 books this month. Oh yeah, I forgot. Along with Mass Made with Book Bay Read Along, we also have these art challenges that went with the book. I originally did a blog, but you know how life works. I deleted it. I wanted to show you guys my mask that I made. I made a Black Widow spider because don't. I'm tired of reading about pathetic women. I'm tired of it. But anyways, that is it for today, you guys. If you like me, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.